Every month, we receive thousands upon thousands of emails and phone calls from women and men around the country and around the world who are sick and tired of being sick and tired. Today on You Ask the Health Doctors, Dr. Sheridan and Dr. Ellsworth will answer some of the more common questions that we receive. Let's look at the first question. Sheila from Texas asks, I am a 30-year-old mother of 2 children, and I've been suffering with symptoms of mood swings and migraines, low energy, and weight gain. What could be causing these problems, and what can be done to correct it? What about that, Dr. Sheridan?
Well, this is a typical scenario we see. A woman in midlife, especially after a pregnancy, showing signs of what is known as estrogen dominance. It's a tricky term. It's not an estrogen excess. It's a progesterone deficiency.
Okay.
Increasing the risk of breast cancer, uterine cancer, ovarian cancer. So this is a serious condition, and the symptoms, what we're seeing here are mood swings, PMS, cramps, heavy flow, those kinds of things, and that's what she seems to be suffering from. And again, midlife is a common time for a woman to enter into this kind of scenario.
So it's an imbalance in the hormones.
Hormonal imbalance.
And what can be done to correct that?
She's losing progesterone. We give her progesterone. This is a common question I used to get early in practice when I was more traditional, and a woman would say, why can't you give me what I'm missing? You know what I'm missing, you know it's declining, why don't you just give it to me? And when I was more traditional, I didn't have the answer. Now we know, just the way we're designed, we do just that. Treat with progesterone.
So you give her progesterone, and when would she take the progesterone? Would she take it every day during the menstrual
She would cycle
or?
it. Typically, we do days 15 through 28 to take progesterone, using day 1 of the period as day 1 of the cycle. However, if symptoms begin before day 15, she can certainly start it before day 15. The key here is to match her physiology as best we can, as it was designed, and ameliorate symptoms.
So what benefits besides just these symptoms will progesterone have?
Oh gosh, you know, progesterone's one of our biggest bone builders. Progesterone's also, I believe, one of the most potent anti-cancer compounds we make. Women in midlife that don't ovulate, for instance, therefore they don't make progesterone, they have been shown to have a 540% increase in breast cancer and an overall 1,000% increase overall cancer mortality. So I believe we're helping her bones, we're helping her brain development. Brain repair is partly progesterone dependent after brain injury, for instance.
And so it's really could be considered a preventative for cancer.
I believe so, and we see this in women that have had the most children, therefore the most progesterone exposure throughout their life. They get the least breast cancer.
And Lou from Arizona wants to know, I've been suffering with indigestion and heartburn, and I've also been diagnosed with acid reflux. When I eat certain foods, I have abdominal bloating and gas. Are these problems related, and what can be done about it? Is there any natural treatment other than prescribing the blue pill, Nexium? Dr. Ellsworth?
Very common condition, and fortunately there is a natural solution. But what most doctors don't understand is that the actual cause of this is related most commonly to an overgrowth of yeast in our GI tract. Between taking antibiotics.
Your GI tract is what?
The gastrointestinal tract, or our GI, the colon, the large intestine, is where most of our yeast will be found. And what we typically find is you get the yeast out of the system by cutting out sugars and starches, taking some simple things that kill yeast, usually prescription antifungals, and also lots of the good bacteria. A lot of the folks that thought they would live the rest of their life taking these pills every day, no more symptoms, no more pills, gone. We find that the majority of the time, it's not just improved, it's gone.
Eliminated.
And we're talking about a very serious condition because the reflux can cause damage to the esophagus. On top of that, an unhealthy GI tract causes allergies, and our whole immune system begins to work improperly. So this is really a simple solution to a very common problem.
What causes these people to get yeast overgrowth in their colon?
Well, the antibiotics, things like taking birth control pills, using steroids, even chlorine in the water tends to increase the overgrowth of yeast. There's a lot of things that we do that kill off the good bacteria, plus we feed the yeast very easily because yeast love sugar.
Well, we know this is that doctors tend to overprescribe antibiotics, and that leads to the yeast overgrowth in that's a great solution for the problem. So thanks so much for sharing that with us.
My pleasure.
Nancy from New England emails us, I've been getting a lot more colds lately that turn into sinus infections. When I take antibiotics for infections, I end up getting vaginal yeast infections. How can I break this vicious cycle? Well, this sounds kind of similar to the previous question, Dr. Sheridan. Tell us about this. What causes this?
This is an allergy yeast cycle, and appropriate term, vicious cycle. Allergies, a lot of swelling, a lot of discharge in the upper respiratory tract, sets one up for infections. You get antibiotics. The antibiotics kill the good bacteria. Antibiotics don't kill yeast, so the yeast gets to overgrow. The cyclic part of this is the yeast, as an allergic individual, if I have yeast in my colon every single day, 24 hours a day, I become allergic to the yeast. So I get antibiotics, a yeast overgrowth, I become allergic to yeast, my allergies get worse, I'm more prone to get sinus infections, more prone to get antibiotics. Vicious cycle couldn't be a better term.
Cycle of illness.
Cycle of illness.
Well, good. Thanks so much, Doctor.
Quite welcome.
Johnny from Chicago writes, I'm 30 years old and been diagnosed with ADD, that's attention deficit disorder, and I've been put on Adderall. I have a bad short-term memory and have trouble focusing and paying attention. I also have a hard time gathering my thoughts and talking. I don't want to be labeled ADD. I don't want to take this prescription. Could there be an underlying cause? What about that, Dr. Ellsworth?
Well, one common issue that comes up is as we go through life, our thyroid function can decline. And low thyroid often looks just like ADD. You're having trouble finding words, trouble gathering your thoughts, you can't focus on a task, and simply addressing the thyroid problem makes a big difference. But the key thing about thyroid is proper diagnosis, and proper diagnosis is a good history and a physical. That's the best window that we have to the inside of our cells. That's where the problem is. Many physicians make the mistake of looking only at the blood work and failing to take into account the clinical picture. The symptoms of hypothyroidism need to be looked at.
Well, when you have low thyroid, that means your energy level is going to be low.
Typically low energy, maybe trouble losing weight, dry skin, perhaps constipation. Everything tends to be sluggish.
Slow. So the thinking slows down. They get ADD. Now, what is the Adderall?
You know, these stimulants are simply used as a replacement for the real thing, thyroid. What we really need is thyroid function to be optimized.
So we get our energy level up.
Instead, we're using stimulants, which of course is not natural, and there's some side effects with this, some serious side effects.
These are related to amphetamine, so they can be addictive, the Adderall and those drugs.
Well, in fact, a recent study indicated that the risk of sudden death is significantly increased with these medications. And unfortunately, many times physicians just don't know a better answer, but there are other answers out there.
Well, good. Thanks so much,
Very
Dr.
welcome.
Ellsworth. Wondering where you can get more information about what's coming up at the Hotze Health and Wellness Center? Up next, we give you our calendar for this month's special events, promotions, and speaking engagements. So stay tuned.